Well, good afternoon. Welcome to the Lehigh County Board of Director meeting on Monday, July 22nd, 2024. The meeting has been held either in person or via Zoom or the conference call. Let's start with the roll call for the Board of Directors. Lisa, would you please?
Certainly. Roll call of the board. Brian Noggle. Amir Famili.
Here.
Ted Lyons. Jeff Morgan.
Here.
Norma Cusick.
Here.
Kevin Baker. Linda Rosenfeld.
Here.
Sean Ziller.
Here.
Mark Gramis.
Good morning, here.
We have 4 members present, so we have a quorum.
Thank you. So the package for the meeting was sent in advance to the Board of Directors, either via email or through the mail. And also the agenda and the package for today was posted on the website of the LCA. Going to review the agenda. Lisa, any changes or any need for the executive session?
No changes to today's agenda and no executive sessions.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that. Let's move on to the approval of the last meeting minutes. Jeff, would you please?
Yeah, so I just have a question on page 3, second paragraph. The last sentence talks about high priority alternatives to address emergency supply. And it says reestablish the board's interconnection with South Whitehall. It says reestablish the interim Sean Spring booster station. That's correct? Reestablish, okay. And then I make a motion that we approve the minutes as said. Second.
And I'll second those.
Okay. Second by Sean, thank you. The motion moved by
Need a vote?
yes.
Need a vote?
The vote, yes, for the. Okay, you wanna. Well, everybody looking for, I'll say, yeah, if they approve the meeting minutes.
Aye.
Okay. You are this staying, okay. Anybody else? No?
Aye.
Okay. But then we have to speak loud. Okay. Let's move on to the public comments on any items which is not on the agenda.
No, thank you. This is Jenny, and for FYI, Brian's away today.
Thank you. Let's move to the items on the agenda under finance and administration. We have a progress report on the LCA strategic plan, which is on yellow pages, and the digital board package, page 9 to 13.
All right, thank you. And this actually is a minor error on the agenda. It's not for approval, it's just information.
Correct.
So the strategic plan semi-annual progress report is included in the packet. And I don't have a plan, a detailed presentation, because I think most of these topics we have talked about quite a bit during many of our meetings. But I have just a couple comments on a few of the items. And first and foremost, the first item on the report relates to the Kleins Island Sewer System Act 537 plan. And you'll see in the section called Work Outstanding, 2024 Work Outstanding, there's a lot to do. And a lot of details that need to come together in order for us to have a finalized Act 537 plan by the end of the year. I wanted to call this one out in particular because there's a lot of opportunity for board involvement in those items, especially as it relates to public meetings that we might hold, as well as working through the intermunicipal agreements and the pretreatment plant solutions. So we present a lot about this plan and various approvals and authorizations, but getting deeper board involvement on the public feedback process, I think, is something that the board should expect as the year progresses. And I know 2 board members have already been deeply involved in the pre-trio plan stakeholder process. A couple of other items, these are all important, so that's why they're in the report. But I have a couple of other items, comments on the Tyler EERP implementation. Wanted to highlight the fact that under the 2024 work outstanding, you'll see a number of modules that we're going to be implementing that are brand new. And so things like employee self-service, project accounting, are the inventory module. These are all brand new to LCA and they will take some time to work through. So just kind of giving the board some notice that this will probably spill into 2025. The implementation, we're still targeting for January 1, but there's going to be a period in 2025 where we're training, working on process workflows and those sorts of things. And then the last one that I have a real comment on is the lead program. It's listed 3rd in the report, but out of everything that is in the strategic initiatives for 2024, this one has the most regulatory pressure associated with it. We have hard regulatory deadlines to meet in October of this year related to submitting inventory to DEP and putting our lead service line replacement plan together to DEP. So there's a lot of work there, as well as getting progress on or making progress on projects to replace lead service lines. But because of the regulatory deadlines in place, it kind of heightens the importance of making sure we're on schedule for the strategic plan. I believe we've talked about various aspects of the asset management plan, work that we're doing. So, lots of good progress going on there, and we'll continue to see progress there. We're focusing on 2 facilities for asset management plans this year. We have dozens more to do. So bringing the staffing in place to manage that will be important. And same thing on employee safety, bringing our new safety manager on board and getting that person up and running with our safety programs. It's going to be really important to successful. The last one on the list relates to the staffing and building plan. We've made, I think, a lot of headway identifying near-term needs. We had robust discussion at the last board meeting about facility planning around new staffing requirements. And just wanted to acknowledge we've heard the board's feedback. We are taking a bit of a step back and wanting to consolidate all the individual sort of area plans that we've been working on and try to consolidate that into a more comprehensive plan so we understand the future staffing needs and the building plan needs to accommodate that. So you'll hear more about that, but not next month. We're taking a little bit of a pause or a hold. I've listed on the last page some other high priority goals that we're working on, many of which you're familiar with, related to the board delegation piece, sand spraying, PFAS. We also need to put some focus on emergency response planning and of course grant management. But just a high level overview of the strategic initiatives we've identified for 2024. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments from the board members?
Yeah, I just have 2 quick questions. First one, Lisa, a lot of great work, as we've previously talked about with the KISS Act 537 plan. Does the team feel confident for those items specifically under, the work that's standing? Do they feel confident in kind of wrapping all of that up, in this year?
Yeah, so Sean, that's a great question. And I'll say we've been giving ourselves a little bit of grace on this one because it is, number one, super involved and complex, but also number 2 involves 15 municipal entities that are on different wavelengths, that we'll say, or different schedules in terms of building their understanding and support for this plan. So we had originally targeted September of 2024 to have the plan completed. We're giving ourselves some grace to the end of the year, but we do think the end of the year is still achievable. And I'll just ask Phil for confirmation that you think that's the target we're comfortable with.
The end of the year seems comfortable pending what you just got done saying.
There's still a lot to bring together in terms of especially the intermunicipal agreements. I would say that's kind of the most amorphous piece right now. Thank you, Sean.
Yep. And then my second question is maybe more of a process question or really just kind of my own curiosity. And it's been a while. I can't remember if since I've been on the board. I know we have received some grants, but I don't know if since I've been on the board, we actually have applied for grants. Maybe we have, but I know in the municipal world and the city I work for, oftentimes when the city applies for a grant, they have to get a statement of resolution or authorization from, in this case, city council. Is that something similarly that needs to be done by this board, or are there instances where certain grants require a letter of support or authorization from us? I can't remember since the last time we've done one here, if that's been the case.
Yeah, Sean, some of our it's very grant specific, the program specific requirements. So the PennVest grants that we're doing for the lead service line replacement program, those do require resolutions. You did a resolution for that application back in April, and our next application is going in July. So that's, we have a little bit of lag time since you approved that resolution. Some of the other programs may not require resolutions, so it's pretty much program specific. Typically there is a resolution, but it's not.
I just didn't know if we had something baked in the kind of baked in the parameters of our board, or if that's something a standing kind of process we were considering. But that's good to know.
Thanks, John.
I want to acknowledge the number of recordable that we have year to date, and also the number of the days no lost time. So great progress so far. The vehicle accident, there's something that sometimes you're out of your control. There are a lot of crazy drivers around. So majority of them, as I read, was other people hitting us rather than something we have done. So great progress for the team. I just want to acknowledge that during this meeting. Hopefully with the hiring that we have done with the safety officer, which I believe is in board, is that correct?
Yeah.
Hopefully we will take some workload from your shoulder and put it on his shoulder or her shoulder too. I think his shoulder, if I'm not mistaken, to drive the safety program forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Moving to next items under water is the Klein Island Secondary Digester Cleaning Project. It's a change order. It's in green documents, digital board package, pages 14 to 18.
And this one is Amy Rohrbach. Thank you. So back in February, I was here for capital project authorization request for the cleaning of the secondary digester at Klein's Island. As you are probably aware, we are on a 5-year rotation for cleaning the digesters, and the secondary is up for cleaning this year. We had authorized the construction for Romesburg Trucking Inc., doing business as Mobile Solid Solutions. They had done work at the plant for us in the past. The contract was included an estimated quantity of 200 dry tons for that cleaning. We exceeded that quantity, and the total quantity was 273.16 dry tons of solids were removed. Therefore, we're requesting a change order for an additional $57,181.95 for this increase in quantity. The quantity was estimated at 200 based on previous cleanings and just the historic loadings. We exceeded that loading. We are having some upset, if you will, with the stratification of solids and liquids in the digester. We're trying to identify exactly maybe what would be causing that, but it's the nature of whatever comes into the plant. Sometimes this happens. So we're requesting construction change order for Romesburg Trucking Inc., doing business as Mobile Solid Solutions for that $57,181.95. The work has been completed. This is just to finalize their contract and reconcile everything.
Thank you. Any question, comment from the board member?
Make a motion to approve the change order.
So moved. This is Norma.
Moved by Jeff, and second by Norma. So this is seeking approval for capital project for the Claison and secondary digester cleaning, which is a change order for amount of $57,181.95. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to next topic, the monthly project update is for the board meeting of the month, moving to the financial review.
Right, Ed?
Hey, I want to get excited.
As it says, exciting as the finance. Report.
So this is how we did in June. And kind of where we are at the end of the first half of the year. I think you'll see some of the numbers look fairly good, but let's get into it. So for the month, we had two of the three funds ended up being on the positive side in terms of net income. Suburban wastewater with the loan fund that went on the negative side. The good news is we had forecasted that it was going to be negative and it's not as negative. So as you look across the board on net income for the month alone, we're favorable suburban water, wastewater, city division, and for the business in cash flows. Well, skip one.
Oh,
Back up.
sorry,
One more.
one more.
Yep, cash flow on the
Sorry
bottom.
about that.
That's right. Tell you I'm paying attention. So on the cash flows, we actually were positive in suburban water. And on wastewater side, we were on the negative side, in city division on the negative side as well. Compared to forecast, suburban water was favorable, suburban wastewater unfavorable. And even despite the fact that it was negative, city division was favorable to forecast. Couple things on the income statement and cash flow just for the month. Pretty much operating revenues were okay, actually a little bit unfavorable in suburban water and wastewater, but the positive variance was driven mostly by lower operating expenses in both funds. And as you get into the city, basically we had positive variance on operating revenues, lower operating expenses, and lower CAPEX. The cash flow for suburban wastewater was affected by a significant amount of CAPEX spending that we just did not have in forecast right. Now we go to year to date. So for June, year to date, suburban water and city division positive, very similar to what we looked at in the month. Wastewater was unfavorable. However, I like to compare the forecasts, and across the board, all three funds on the positive side to forecast and in total for the business. Cash flow statement, water and city division are up. And again, a reminder about the city division capturing a lot of cash from proceeds of borrowing that were for 3 years worth of projects instead of the 1 year that we had. So we took in a lot more cash because we borrowed. As compared to forecast, all three funds are on the positive side. And we will get into some of the graphs that support that after we take a look at where we are for the year.
And for the suburban wastewater, year to date, in $500,000 short. How, correct?
On income, yes.
So is that more of capital or what is the
It would
main?
be more of the trade-off between operating revenues and operating expenses because it's sitting on the income statement. Yeah, the only time you would see the real effective capital being higher or lower would be as you get down into the cash flow statement. Okay, so compared to the budget for the year, and I can say that we really had not changed the forecast from what we had seen over the last 2 months. So we're favorable in suburban water in terms of net income. Wastewater is also favorable. City division became unfavorable, well, when we added up all the costs of borrowing that additional 2 years of money, and that hit the income statement. I mean, not bad, year-to-date income statement, or, I mean, not bad for the year compared to budget. And part of me wants to say, I should probably at some point in time show you what a pro forma would look like on the city if we would have done 3 years. So we will do that. In terms of cash flows, we said budget of $4.7 million. Well, obviously, we're really higher. Take out $37 million of excess on the borrowing. And I guess the good news is you're still favorable compared to budget once you adjust for that. So we did okay compared to forecast, and we think the forecast represents a favorable position to budget as well. So just looking at suburban water in terms of, now this would be on a year-to-date basis, $475,000 favorable on the income side, and you can see there's not a negative variance to be found on the income side. Operating revenues up, expenses are lower, and non-operating, which would basically be interest income, is up. So you know, it's all good on the income side. Basically, it kind of rolls over into the cash flow. I'm sorry, income for the year. I'm already jumping to cash flow. Gotta slow down. For the year, you can see that we're predicting compared to budget will be up on operating revenues, operating expenses, and interest income as well. Might be a little bit off on expense, but altogether you're going to be $328,000 compared to forecasted budget. So taking a look at cash flows year to date. Cash flow from operations was better. Debt service and financing was better. We were higher on CAPEX. And I guess the general note is we said we were going to redo the forecast a bit. We just got started on that. So as we finished the first half, we had said we were going to be at a spending level, and we were higher than that. And the interest income is favorable as well. So a couple of pluses and minuses on the cash flows for the full year. Well, we think we'll be $332,000 better than budget, and most of that sitting in cash from operations. Metrics, debt service, good. You're at 2.15. Obviously better than target and budget target for the year. Operating ratio, good as well, at 1.23, a little bit above the budget target and certainly above the target of 1. And cash on hand of 414 days, which is obviously a good position to be in. Okay, the suburban wastewater side. So income year to date is up by, let's just say 410,000. You can see what's happening there. Basically, we have a little bit of shortfall in operating revenue. mostly on, call it the municipal side. And on the operating expenses, we're making up for that. And then the non-operating items, interest income, from investments. So basically, we more than offset the little bit of shortfall that we have in revenue on a year-to-date basis. For the full year, we think we'll be better than budget. You can see that at the end, we think we'll be okay with respect to pretty much every category, revenues, expenses, and non-operating and even interest expense. So, pretty happy with that. Cash flows, year to date, about $72,000 favorable. You got some help from operations, mainly because of lower operating expenses. You got a little bit of savings in debt service. We spent about 830,000 more in CapEx than we thought we would. But then we get some higher interest income to offset some of that. So at the end of the day, we end up on the positive side because of cash from ops and a couple other things, more than offsetting the CapEx spending. Cash flow to budget, so forecast to budget. We think we'll be down in operating revenues by a little bit, and we'll make up for it in investing. So kind of holding to just a really small variance to budget right now for the entire year. Metrics. 5.14 debt service, like that. Year-to-date operating ratio, well, we're kind of at the budget level. This was one where we came into the budget year at a little bit less than the target of 1. Days cash on hand, 216 days. That's in a good position too. City division. $3.7 million favorable income variance. You can see across the board. Operating revenue is good. Operating expenses positive. Non-ops, that's what would be interest income. Interest expenses lower. Well, that we did a good job when we refinanced. We cut down some of the interest expense. Income for the full year, we think will be better on operating revenues, better on operating expenses. Well, obviously, with the fees from the borrowing, that pushes us into unfavorable territory. So we're down by 4.5 million. Cash flows year to date, $10 million, and you can see where it is in the way we did the debt service and financing. Cash from operations is better. This particular fund had lower CapEx, and investment is up as well. Where we think we'll finish the year, well, we're certainly going to finish better than budget for all of the reasons I talked about before related to the borrowing. Like I said, I think it would be probably good to put in that pro forma to kind of show that when we get into July. Debt service coverage ratio. We're at 1.86. We have a target of 2.13 for the year. We think we'll still get there. So I think that at the end of the year, we'll still finish above the targets. We're certainly above the 1.20 threshold. Operating ratio 2.21, that's better than targets. We think down some to 1.74, but that'll still put us in a good position. Right now, we're at 512 days cash on hand. So looking at that scorecard, we are 14 out of 14 in suburban water. Suburban wastewater is 10 out of 14, with a couple falling off in the fact that we are negative on net income and negative on cash flow. We talked about the operating ratio of 0.94 being a little bit below what we desire at 1. And right now the operating revenues are a little bit lower than where we thought they would be on a year-to-date basis. City, 13 out of 14. The net income is down. The pretty much, I mean, given the borrowing, it's gonna stay that way because of the loan costs that we incurred to do that. So we really didn't make any changes to the full year forecast. We will start on a Q3 forecast. We will start on, and we have started on the capital plan, capital forecast that we can kind of look at as we're doing the capital planning as well. So that's what's coming up. Year-to-date performance on both net income and cash flows is better than forecast for all three funds. Hard to argue with that. And we're still seeing strong invested balances. Rates are still up, so that's helping us a bit. And like I said, we will be doing something with respect to forecast. So all in all, not a bad month. Actually, year-to-date, I think looks fairly good. And we'll see where the next forecast takes us, but I don't expect the forecast to be anything worse than where we are now.
Thank you, Ed. Any question for Ed? Thank you, sir. Moving to next items on the monthly system operation overview. It's the digital package, pages 32 to 36.
Right, in front of you, you should have the June 2024 monthly operations report. As you can see, there was no reportable or non-reportable safety incidents, but there was 2 property damages. Both of those were vehicle incidents. As I'm going to quote Amir on this and say not all of them are our fault. As you can see, a parked vehicle in a parking lot, it's not something that's exactly avoidable. There was another one where one of the flashing lights on top of the vehicle hit a low hanging branch and was just broken off. Nothing major. We'll head on over to page 2. Water production, we're starting to hit peak season here. Most of that is in the central division where we're up almost about 1.5 million gallons per day. We are making that up mainly through the interconnection with Allentown. And wastewater, we're right back down to normal on what we typically see throughout the year. And that's even with 2.27 inches of rain. Heading down, there was one SSO that was within Allentown, and that was on Woodland Avenue. The cause of that was a blockage due to grease and wipes. There was 2 main breaks. We had one in Allentown and one in Suburban, and there were 2 emergency declarations. If you recall, the first one was within Allentown. It was for the digester gas line. The final pricing is in for that one, and if I can read that, it is $29,655.98. The second one was relating to a sewer line. We have not received final pricing on that one, so I will update the report once we have that information for you. Let's see here, we also, I'll hit this one now, is a tier 2 public notice for the Emmaus Consecutive Division. The Pennsylvania MCL, not results, MCL limitations are active now in Pennsylvania. So this was the first notice that we put out for the exceedance of the MCLs within the Emmaus Consecutive Division. We haven't had any other exceedances through any of our systems, but I felt this was important to sort of make note that there are a few customers within our consecutive division that have exceeded the MCL for PFO and PFOS. Heading over to the 3rd page.
I'm sorry, Andrew, did you receive any feedback, comment from the customer in the Emmaus area after this notice went out?
We received quite a few phone calls, yes. Mainly questions about what their concentrations of the water that they're receiving are. It's not exactly something that we can answer without some type of hydraulic model.
Sure.
The way that we went about it this time and through agreement with PADEP was we have 9 different sampling locations at our consecutive division. So we sampled in the distribution all throughout. So we have a somewhat of a better understanding of what they may be seeing, but without a hydraulic model, it's not something that we can really give answers to. So this was for some of the customers, it's somewhat comforting knowing that they may not be very high. Some of them, if they're receiving water directly from one of the wells in Emmaus that is closer to that fire training center, that the results are a little bit higher.
In the LCA is qualified to answer those kind of questions because they're pretty technicals. And you have to stay within the boundary of the law. So I'm just trying to see this doesn't go to our regular customer
Right.
service.
The way that it typically is handled is customer care does take in those calls and they're able to handle a very large portion of them. If they do become more technical, they typically get passed over to me or someone else that's available.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Andrew, just a couple more questions. So are these levels, were the EPA levels or the DEP levels?
This is in relation to Pennsylvania's MCL.
Okay, and then was there a compliance time associated with those? But now you have to be in compliance, that's run out, is that where we are?
Basically, they became effective in January of 2024. So the MCLs are active. The technical compliance monitoring period is a rolling average though.
Okay,
So it's a little odd to say the least. And the way that Pennsylvania has asked us to do it is to actually say, like we have the results listed here, because we don't have a single entry point. Our consecutive division is pockets branched off of the Emmaus Borough. So it makes it very difficult to have a true compliance monitoring number. So that's why they asked us to do it this way, so that it's a little bit more representative of what those customers are actually seeing.
I thought Emmaus was installing PFAS treatment, so do they have some schedule of compliance to do that, like 3 years or as soon as possible? You have any idea, like?
As far as their timeline, I personally don't. I don't know if you have any.
What is the regulatory timeline?
The regulatory for Pennsylvania would be, I don't know if it's 3 years, actually. I don't have the answer to that.
Okay. So I'm just curious if like we're kind of in a interim period here, or you could be fined or get, violations for this because they're in effect, or how all that works?
I would say that would be accurate. You're in violation, yes. I just don't know if they have some type of compliance schedule
Right, right,
of
because,
making yes.
can't make something, active in January and expect it to be built in February, so.
Right.
Okay.
The borough had made their decision to pursue treatment at the wells instead of some of the other options.
Yes.
That was
Right.
maybe a year and a half ago.
Right,
So as far as status of that project, we don't have that
Okay.
update, but certainly, yeah.
all right.
And once again, though, that whole conversation was really based around Pennsylvania's MCLs, where the EPAs are even lower.
Yes,
So I don't know if that changes anything for them or not.
gotcha. Thanks.
And we will head over to the third page. And actually, I've noticed that my numbers did not update. Likely due to operator error. So I will give you the real numbers on here. So for Allentown, there was one SSO. Going down to Heidelberg, there was no permit exceedances. And in Sand Spring, there was 3 permit exceedances, not 5. 2 of them were in relation to ammonia, and there was 1 fecal coliform exceedance. And in Wynwood, there was 2, which were also in relation to fecal coliform. There's no boil water advisories, and that should wrap it up. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to.
Any question from the board member? Thank you, appreciate that. I think that's all we have on the agenda, if I'm not mistaken. Any staff comment?
Yeah, I have just a brief update I wanted to share with the board that the pretreatment plant stakeholder panel met for the 3rd time on the 17th, last Wednesday. And big thank you to Amir for being at all of them, and Ted Lyons has also been at most of them as well, and participating on behalf of the LCA board. This last meeting that we had last week might be our last meeting. Because I think we've had robust discussion over the last 3 meetings, gotten all the feedback that we can from the stakeholders, and we're really at a point of just synthesizing that into a solution that we can present to the board. And we would like to do that, most likely in August, pending having all the pieces together. I just wanted to share that the discussion we've had with the panel has really, it hasn't been a technical discussion at all. It's been really just focused on some of the high level questions about regional growth in the industrial sector. How do we plan for that? How do we pay for it? Because it's speculative. We don't know when it will happen, if it will happen. And then also really diving into some of the decision-making process that each individual current industry is going through to decide how they'll be impacted and how they might want to handle pretreatment. So it's been a really interesting process, and I hope that it's been interesting for you, Amir, to listen to all the different points of feedback. We are kind of homing in on a solution that we'd like to present to the board. As I said, maybe in August, but essentially the feedback we've received to date has really pointed us in a direction of having a very customized type of solution that meets the needs of the existing industries, and then trying to focus on how to expand in the future if and when new industrial growth happens. And that is the general shape of what the panel recommendation looks like. So look forward to sharing that in more detail later on. And I think that's good enough for today.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa, appreciate that.
Mhm.
You know, I want to commend you for running those meetings, because there are various group with various interests, and nobody wants to dig in their pocket to give money, but they want everything. And hopefully we are bringing the best interest for the county and for the LCA forward for the board. So, solicitor comments?
No comments, thank you.
Thank you. Any public comment?
No, thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. Any board member comment? Okay, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.